Okay, thank you, Jennifer. I think I'm speaker number 4 of 4 for the day, so I'm going to try to keep it light, and I'm going to try to get most of the information out without boring you guys to death. But my the title of this presentation is navigating the new reality, and boy, we need navigation. There's a compass here. There's a chart. Yeah, I get this question every single day from subordinates and from superiors. What are we doing next, Panos? What are we doing next? Well, the Survey.com organization has some insights that I think you're going to find interesting. As you probably heard before, we just joined the Trax family, but we come with about 10 years of retail execution and data behind it. So we can really help you navigate this reality, and we can really help you anticipate how long this will take. So first things first, why is survey, why are we relevant? And why should we have something to say with all that going on around us? So it's very simple. We got 700,000 plus field reps. That is our asset, and that's our head of the spear, and they're visiting stores throughout the US every single day, thousands of visits, executing on a retail strategy. And because of that, we're in a unique position to observe, analyze, and respond to changes to consumer behavior and retail ops. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. When you have 700,000 of your ambassadors, you get a lot of data. And what we have done is analyze the data. We observed how the reps behave. We analyze the data, and we're responding today with some lessons. Consumer behavior, you could say, hey, you're in retail execution. What do you know about consumer behavior? Well, for starters, when you're in store, you interact with consumers. But additionally, 700,000 consumers are reps. Our reps are consumers. So if we can triangulate what they think, what people in store believe, we can get some lessons out there. And hopefully these are lessons that can help you. So survey has something to say, and our reps have collected enough data to be able to make some sense of what's going on. So first things first, consumer sentiment, consumer behavior, things have changed. I don't need to tell you that things have changed. They have changed for you. I'm sitting on my kitchen table doing this. I bet you guys are sitting in your homes trying to get away from your children. Things have changed. And as Sense 360 tells us, they're probably going to continue to be different for quite a while. So before I talk about our observations, let's see what the consumers have told us about some of the activities and the behaviors that they're about to change, or they're about to change forever. Originally, we thought some of these changes, some of these behavioral alterations will be temporary, but it's starting to look like a few of us, not a majority, but a few of us are going to change our lifestyle forever. So which one of the following activities is the question here, do the consumers expect will be the longest lasting? You can see percentages of respondents that believe it's going to be a while before they get back to normal, and every single one of these affects the consumer sentiment, and by definition affects consumer behavior and retail. Every single one of these activities has something to do, either leading to retail or has something to do with consumer spending and behavior. Even something as simple as working from home. You see 1 out of 5 almost, 19% of respondents here say they will continue working from home, even something that simple will have a long-lasting effect into local businesses, a long-lasting effect to how much is spent on the traditional corporate lunch versus eating at home. All these factors here are relevant. Some of it obvious, like are we going to wear masks, wearing PPE? You can see here in the middle, 34% believe it's going to be a long-lasting behavior to continue wearing PPE, or 34%, same exact number by coincidence, are people that are likely going to stop shaking hands. Now that doesn't sound like a big deal, but that's 1 out of 3. How many times in the history of humanity have we had a third of the population change behavior overnight? So really, this slide indicates that things are going to be different for the short term, for the medium term, and seems to be that people believe for the long term as well. Now, I'm pretty sure if I had this slide done right after 9/11, we will be seeing quite a lot of exaggerated responses. So I'm pretty sure some of this may be an exaggeration, but exaggeration makes for a good presentation. So let's go with it, because what's coming right after this is information we collected in store, and by talking to those consumers, that can be even more relevant to how you look at the future. Okay, so when it comes to consumer sentiment, what you saw in the previous slide has some implications. And most of us, if not all of us, know what those implications are. So I'm just going to go quickly through some really tough messages. And we all know this is going to happen, but let's remind ourselves before we get into retail specific stuff. So retail and food service will suffer losses. UBS says 100,000 businesses, 100,000 mom and pops retail stores will close because of coronavirus. The Restaurant Association says 40% of restaurants may not reopen. It's simply because it was already very tough to stay in business without all these limitations and the social distancing. Imagine with it. So our retail footprint will be smaller. When it comes to retail strategies, our strategies, our short and mid-term strategies, and our daily tactics have to shift. What happens in grocery, in big box, in pharmacy, even what happens in C-store now has to be seen through a different prism, and we need to be prepared to make tough decisions, reallocate budgets, whether we're the retailer or the manufacturer. We need to understand these are big changes that are happening very, very quickly, and we need to respond. Spending will be tighter. It's very painful to predict this, but after the great lockdown, we're going to have another great recession. A lot of these jobs will not come back quickly, and that means that competition will be stiffer. So 1 through 4, not great, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel, and there is some trend. The trend is delivery, online ordering, picking and packing. We'll talk about it in this. We'll talk about it today. Will replace location, at least for the short term, maybe even the midterm. I don't see, and my organization doesn't see too many long-term structural changes. If there's a second or a third wave to this horrible virus, maybe we do. But for now, let's concentrate on what we can do today and what we have learned. So what does it all mean for retail? So we talk to consumers. We talk to them every day. We employ consumers. And there's some pretty simple observations and guesses. It's somewhere between an observation and a guess, actually. It's more an expectation. But we can see the trend. We can see the starting point, and we're going to follow it. But shopping trips will be less frequent with less people and larger basket sizes. But the actual shopping trip changing has an implication on all of us, number one. Number two, new product discovery and consumer interaction. They're not ceasing, they're not freezing, but they're changing. One thing is for sure, tastings, demos, festivals, sporting events. A lot of forums we used to use for product launch events are just not available anymore. They're on hold. And I dare predict that will be the last ones coming back after everything has been cleared. So number two, we need new product discovery ways and new ways to interact and educate our consumers. And number three, I hope someone has talked about this before today. I hope I'm not the Grim Reaper reminding everyone, but we need to prepare for the second wave. And history tells us we need to prepare. We need to take the lessons from the first one and apply them to the second wave. Now, Sanjay Gupta tells you also to don't touch, not breathe, wipe everything down, not talk to each other, and walk alone down the street. There's a lot of exaggeration about what our life will look like. The only thing I can get and I can share with you out of this is hygiene will play a big role. And probably forever. People do not forget watching CNN 24 hours a day, or depending on your country, whatever that channel is, and just seeing case numbers and death numbers going up all day, and for 60 days nevertheless. So hygiene will change. So let's go one by one. Core lessons, shopping trips. So shoppers are going to be making fewer trips. They are going to pantry load. And as opposed to what life used to be, where a family will do 2, 3, 4 grocery runs a week, we're most likely going to have very limited interaction and chance to educate the consumers. So first impressions are at least now the only impressions. You're not going to see that consumer too many times this coming week. And there's data showing that will likely continue. So to thrive in this environment, retailers and CPGs must focus on a couple of suggested corrections. So first, you need just-in-time controls, corrections at the shelf. We need instant packouts. It's self-serving, of course, that this is first because we have an expertise in on-demand packouts, but you only get one chance at that shelf with that particular consumer, or they're going to your competitor. Secondly, we need superior messaging. Nutrition, branding, promotion must be simple and visible. We don't have that much time. These shopping visits are going to be much shorter in time, and probably going to be accompanied by a list. The grocery list is now going to drive behavior, so we need to be right there with a simple message. The third one here, you probably have talked about it multiple times today, but I'm going to remind everyone that without the tight alignment of deliveries, of warehouse and DSD schedules, and the individual store needs, there's going to be gaps. We need to know when that product is in the back. We need to know how that product will get from the back to the front. And if it's not going to get there on time, we need to intervene. Now, quick responses to competitor marketing moves will be very, very important. We are not going, as I said, we're not going to see these consumers 27, 30 times a month. We're going to see them twice or 3 times. So if a competitor gets ahead of us and promotes a particular message that resonates, we need to be able to respond very quickly. And lastly, and Track Survey are all about that. It's the 24 hours coverage and monitoring. We have to have the data, not on a weekly or bi-weekly or bi-monthly basis. We don't have to, we have to have the data in our fingertips the next day. What happened yesterday has to define what happens today. We can't afford to wait for weeks at a time to fix retail. All right, number 2 on my list of things to pay serious attention to is, how are we going to stay relevant without interacting with the consumer? And how are we going to promote new products? How are we going to promote our message, our brand, if we're not able to meet them in store? For those of you that know, this may be repetitive, but for the rest of you, TPRs, end cap promotions, in-store demos were virtually eliminated. And entire industries literally woke up one morning and they were locked out of retail. Costco started. You probably know Costco is not just famous, notorious about their consumer interaction, but others followed very quickly. I think Costco was March 6th or 7th. And then one by one, retailers, Walmart, Target, Kroger, everyone halted in-store demos by the 16th. Next thing you know, promotions were thrown out. So in essence, onboarding new products and SKUs is nowhere. You literally walk into the store as a consumer and you have zero education right now. Reps are reporting that shoppers don't even pick up the products to read nutritional info. Think about that. I'm the kind of guy that before I even buy something new, doesn't matter how exciting the packaging is, I pick it up and I see how much fat there is, how much protein there is, how many calories there is. The CPGs now must find alternatives quickly. How are you going to stay relevant, top of mind? How are you going to keep up with all these changes? There is 10 billion consumers, 1 billion of which are communicating with us through retail, and we have no return communication. So we thought about that, and we talked to the consumers, and then we have quite a lot of knowledge from some very innovative emerging brands. So we need new methods. That's the answer. We need a new product introduction protocol post-COVID-19. With traditional methods completely paused, we have to think outside the box. And that's not something I use very quickly, because usually I live outside the box. But in this case, cuckoo packs. For those of you that do not know what they are, there's a visual right after this, but inspiring trials, bundle packs, packaged single bite examples. If someone is not going to pick up a protein bar to read the nutritional facts, the only other way to get them to try your product is to have a single bite sample, very well packaged, sanitized, sustainable, so that they can take it home and try it in their own house. We need discovery subscriptions. We need those to be pushed to the forefront. And then we need the categories to start working with each other. One of our categories will have visibility to what the consumer is trying. We need to talk to each other. We need to collaborate, and we need the channels to start sharing information. Now, I talked about ideas. Here's some additional ideas. How do you build awareness at a time where you don't have a communication channel to your consumers? It's a puzzle, really. So what I've done here, I've taken what our emerging younger brands have doing traditionally, and I made it a mainstream strategy. Guerrilla warfare now will go mainstream. You need education as a field activity. A single pack squad trial, we talked about it, maybe even street samples. The signage, the IRCs, the tear pads, they're all incredibly important right now, because as I said, for a little while, people will not be picking up the product and reading the information in the back. Maybe we educate them, and I'm sure most of you, and it's not my specialty, but social education and discovery apps will play a big role, as we said. And finally, some idea out there, quite a lot of brand new categories, emerging millennial type categories are trending as we speak. The digital shelf strips. You heard from Shopkick, or you are going to hear from Shopkick. They play a lot in this space, but consumer interaction and education post-COVID-19, it's going to be a brand new paradigm, and you need to get out of your comfy chair and start trying some of these things. This is my least favorite slide. And as I said, I was praying this morning that I'm not the first one to mention this. But the third most important anticipatory action here is to not get comfortable, because there will be a second wave of this virus. So if your CFO and the stock market are talking and preparing about the second wave, you need to prepare as well. If something goes broken in your distribution, you need to fix it now. If the communication bottlenecks didn't allow product to get to store faster, you need to open up those information highways now. And if you don't have an army, prepare one. If you can't afford to prepare or build one, partner for an army, borrow an army. You're going to need an army again. I talked about PPE in the beginning. Protective equipment is very important to Survey, because those 700,000 reps are our brothers and sisters fighting the good fight here, and we need to protect them. But stocking up on protective equipment has to be your priority as well, whether you're a retailer, whether you're a distributor, no matter who you are, even the CPG, even the manufacturer, even the third-party manufacturer, you all have to stock up on PPE. And of course, communication. Communicate closely with your retailers now. What are we going to do next? What are we going to do the next time the virus appears? What's the plan? And of course, the consumers, we talked about it. It's not easy to communicate with them, if not impossible to communicate with them in retail. But you have them in Facebook, you have them in social media, you have them in clubs. Start talking to them about the next time something bad happens and preparing an action plan. Now, there's a 5 with an asterisk here. Again, self-serving, but you can also work with Tracks and Survey to prepare you for the second wave, because we're thinking about these things, and because we have an army, a big one. And we have an army that's both loyal to the concept of brand representation, but also thinks on the ground like a regular consumer, and that's what we need. So those were the 3 retail lessons. And as our company has gotten bigger, we're actually learning a little more about what can, could, and should happen in the future, especially after the second wave. So I have some strategic slides coming up. You can ignore them. Nobody's paying me to be a strategist or a consultant. But once again, you look at enough data, you get enough client, whether it's retailer, whether it's CPG manufacturer, we get enough requests for information that you're seeing the trend. And of course, I'm just a regular Joe that knows that online ordering, delivery, and pickup is on the rise. How much on the rise? Walmart, you can see on the right-hand side here, as recently as last week, Walmart grocery was having more downloads on the index than the Amazon app. That's how dramatic this online ordering, delivery, and pickup change has been. Retailers actually and delivery services have struggled to meet this demand. And again, I know from firsthand experience, because both call us and ask for help. You have an army, can I borrow that army? But to succeed, we will all need to think about picking and packing. How do we prep a third of our grocery spend to go from the shopper being the picker to a retailer being the picker. That's a humongous shift of both cost. The retailers are struggling to adjust to that cost, but also a humongous shift in consumer behavior. Secondly, we talked about it. If we can't talk to them in person, should we be using the delivery, the pickup, and the product package as the messenger, the front of the pack, the bag, the back of the bag? If we need to tell them something, this is our chance. It's in the bag. They may not touch it. Sanjay Gupta says, don't touch it. But I think the experts have said you can touch it now. So how do we use that package to get our messages through, even announce what's happening in the future? And finally, inventory. E used to be, we need inventory in the back so we can restock the front. We now need inventory in the back and the front at the same time with uncertain amount of expectation on date by day. So think about it as two separate doors. The Price is Right. Two separate boxes. You need to stock them both because they will both be called upon on any given day. And that's inventory planning and inventory management that we didn't have to do before. Again, strategically, we see some things. The supply chain was not ready for the coronavirus. And issues with the following, with the transparency in the inventory, we keep talking about inventory, created significant disruptions. Logistics was a mess. Nobody anticipated demand. Nobody looked at China. I was watching a documentary back in January, and it's an amazing question. How do the Chinese get their groceries? And it looked like there were food trucks full of groceries, just going from neighborhood to neighborhood, and people could come down and pick what they want. And no one really anticipated something like that should or could or may want it to happen in the US. Humanity and ingenuity filled some of the gaps. A lot of you may have seen the headlines, but you can see here a brewery, a distiller at the University of Maine. They turned the breweries into authorized hand sanitizer production lines, and they were delivered to hospitals. Or in the UK, the supermarkets got together and they said, you know what, we're in trouble. Let's start sharing our stock, our distribution centers, and our vans, trying to get out of this out of trouble. But humanity and ingenuity is not always a great plan, if ever. So my final thoughts, again, seeing retail daily and through the eyes of 700,000 different people, we've formulated some thoughts here, but it may be time for a great supply chain reset. Now, everybody else will talk to you today and over the next couple of days about the great retailer reset. Yeah, sure, of course, it's going to be a great reset, and hopefully we're going to get our share to participate in that. But it may be time for a supply chain reset, because what coronavirus said and coronavirus showed to us is that manufacturers were too far from the consumers. So we probably need some channel compression and contraction, and we have to jump both feet into direct to consumer. Because if I can compress time, I can respond quicker to future disasters and future emergencies. Now, the stores are not going away, obviously. A lot of mom and pop shops may close, unfortunately, but most of the stores will have to go dark. And by dark, we mean they have to have a pickup and delivery option. And if you're a manufacturer, you need to anticipate and facilitate that. Whatever packaging and messaging, again, it's going to be a theme through my presentation here, but you need to anticipate that you're not going to be able to touch the consumer as often as you want at retail. So you have to touch them through the dark store, the delivery, the online delivery, and the pickup. And just some advice on my part. let's try to de-risk some production, maybe spread some distribution, enable some direct drop shipping, enable third-party distribution channels in time of crisis. And for those of us who were reluctant to shake things up before, we should not be now. There's a great excuse, if not an incredible good reason, to shake things up. And if I can help it along, I have the data to support you guys. Now, enough about you. Maybe I should talk about Survey a little bit. For those of you that know us, this is not a surprise. But for the rest of you, we are philosophers of retail. Our core philosophy is that every shelf, every category, every store is a battlefield. And the same way you need able soldiers in the battlefield, in retail, you need to be able to execute at the micro level. You need to have a data-driven strategy for every single one of these battlefields. And in order to do that, you need a big, well-trained asset, which is our on-demand workforce. So for those of you that never heard of Survey, this is great because my presentations from 7 years ago are not as good as the ones we have today. But really, the idea here is if we have the data and we have captured what's happening in store today, as I mentioned before, we can plan for tomorrow. Now, Trax has been doing that for years, and they are the number one, if not the only legitimate data collector in store. But if you have that data and you can build the strategy against that data, our on-demand national coverage makes you unbeatable. We have, as I said, 700,000 registered field reps, and they can macro execute as if each store and each shelf was your only store and your only shelf. So why are we in business? Because brands and retailers deserve transparency, flexibility, and accountability. So yeah, we talked about the workforce, but we have the technology, the reporting, the quality controls, and the ability to create programs specifically designed for micro execution. This slide says it all. We have the workforce on one side, and then all kinds of incredibly complicated algorithms. But really what this slide says, if you have the technology and the people and the ability to map an activity to the workforce's expertise, then you can make a difference and you can outdo your competitors. You can outdo the baseline even, or the history, as long as you have great reporting. And that's what we're all about. We're about the ability to generate sales ROI from every single action in store. This is a before and after, and we chose one of the bad ones, but in a slide previously, I talked about the shopper experience, the shopper trips. Well, if your consumer goes to the store today at 3 p.m. and this shelf looks like the one on the left, we're in trouble. Not only we're in trouble because we should be able to anticipate this, but we're in trouble because we're not going to be talking to that consumer anytime soon, maybe a week, 10 days until the next time. So the before and after from a survey visit, what it really says is control of the data and the timing of the data, control of the workforce and control for the action can turn the left to the right in 1 hour. Not 1 hour from the future, not 1 hour from an unknown day of the week, but 1 hour from today, 1 hour from this moment. So if the picture on the left is a 12 noon picture, then this is what it's going to look on the right at 1 p.m. You all know by now, we are part of the Trax retail family. We're excited to be part of this family. There's some incredible technology minds and solutions behind it. We are digitizing the entire physical store. We are transforming how brands and retailers will plan and execute on the strategies of the future. And we are incredibly thankful to be not just a name on this screen, but also a part of an integrated solution. And before I go, and I take some questions from you folks, this is very important. I talked about it in the beginning and the middle of this presentation. Protective equipment kits, safety kits, is what we believe can keep our field reps and our employees safe, both mentally and physically. So as we talk about data and the future of retail and the challenges of coronavirus, let's continue to think about how to take care of everyone, and continue to think about how the future can incorporate PPE as part of a baseline plan. And now, after I say thank you, I'd like to open for questions that you may have.